All right, so the last video that I left off with was the tear down and rebuild basically of the 241C transfer case. And then obviously the point of that was to install the slip yoke eliminator. Again, we got the kit from Tom Woods 4x4 or 4x shaft is how, I guess how they say their name. So now that the T case is all rebuilt, sealed, done, ready to go, I did pull the trans adapter off real quick, double check the seals on that. So that's all set. We have a OEM replacement style transmission mount, which is the poly rubber, whatever you want to call it, that matches the motor mounts. You always want to match motor mounts. All your mounting locations need to match as far as the compound. That way it's a off-the-shelf type deal, replacement down the road. Just makes it that much easier. So next up is we need to come up with a cross member to mount the trans to the frame. This one looks fairly easy, at least how I have it in my mind. Basically going to try to use a piece of 2x2 square tube, 1/4 inch faces that will bolt to the existing 1 inch radius arm bolts, and then there'll be a secondary 1/2 inch bolt on each bracket. So that will keep the mount bolted to the frame. And then there basically will be a step off 1/4 inch step that will end up bolting to this. And that's how that's going to go. The other benefit with this cross member deal is there's really no cross. I mean, here's the next cross member from the motor mount. So 5.5, 6 feet stretch. There's no cross member in this frame, which is probably fine for factory. But since we're going off road, it's going to be flexing. Adding this cross member here, as strong as I'm going to make it, is going to really stiffen up the frame here and make everything that much stronger. So let's get started. Add real quick that this is an energy suspension upgraded version of a OEM style transmission mount. I wasn't very specific on that. And also I forgot to mention, we are need to set our angle here first. So I got everything kind of set up. I went around, looked at all my clearances. There's nothing touching anywhere. There's plenty of gap around the bell housing, the motor, transmission. So always check that. And then driveline angles, closer to 5, the better. No more than 7 degrees, basically. I mean, a 2-wheel drive truck or whatever, you only have to deal with one side. So, not a big deal. But hey, the more the back goes down, it's going to negatively angle the front output up more. So you always want to keep a happy medium here. We are going to be running double cardan drive shafts front and rear. And being that this is a full width axle, the shaft has plenty of space here. The narrow width axles, I mean, you move it 3 inches more this way, there's quite a bit more clearance issues to get into. So, all right, I just want to kind of point out those details real quick. I am setting the drive shaft angle, or the output from the T case, at 5 degrees. Which is awesome. Because in the rear, remember, I got a high 9. So that shaft's going to be up nice and high in the rear, which is great for, all the trail and articulation. It's not going to hit much stuff at all. And then also, obviously, keeping the front output more happy. All right, let's get this going. All right, so here's just kind of an idea here. The object is to basically have the square tube sitting obviously below the front output and then able to build off of and make a gusseted platform with bolt holes. So this is a rough idea how it's going to sit. So basically, from the edge of the mount forward, I'm going to cut a piece of 8 inches by 4.5 inches, 2 rectangular plates. And then I'm going to go ahead and locate the hole, the 1-inch hole, and basically just have these 8 by 4.5 inch plates bolted down, and then I'm going to start working off of that. All right, so I cut out 2 pieces of 8 by 4.5 out of 3/16. I went ahead and measured from the outside edge over, and then from the frame rail down for the bolt locations, and then that's where the 1/2 inch bolt's going to be. So I tacked both pieces together so I can make identical brackets. That's the 1-inch hole, and that's going to be the 1/2 inch hole. So now I'm going to get these drilled out. That way I know the brackets are identical, and then I'll go ahead and cut them loose. All right, so driver's side, passenger side. So I did not shape these yet. They are exactly the same. They just need to be shaped, so if they look funny on camera, no big deal. So now that is the beginning of the Crossmember mount. So I've done this on 2 or 3 other trucks now. One was a full-size Bronco, actually. All right, let's move on. All right, so you gotta be a little bit careful. You could put a measuring tape on the front side of these plates and get one measurement, and then you measure back 4 inches. It's another measurement. These frames are not straight. They get very narrow in the front. So basically I'm going to cut it longer, and then I will grind to fit the taper. So here's my piece of tube, repurposed. This will go right up in here. So I'm going to grind this down to fit. In a sec. I already held that up. This was in place. I took this off. I came up with a rough size of 6 by 5 inch for this is going to go on top of the tube. It's going to be placed, welded on, and then I will gusset it. Right now I'm getting a center line here, and I'm going to measure for the bolt holes, get some holes drilled so I can put this stuff back together in place, and this will help me mock everything up. All right, next piece. This is at 6 by 5 on a 1/4 inch plate. Yes, I messed up my bolt holes the first time around. I was off. I don't know how that happened. That's why I go oversized. So got new bolt holes all set. So now I'm gonna basically put this with a C-clamp to here, and then I'll hammer it evenly back and forth on the plates, get everything lined up. All right, so now you'll see why I put this up there first. So I can C-clamp the 2x2 to that. And then I hammered it in place, making sure there's enough room for a socket to come on here, the 2 bolts, making sure, you know, I have enough room to weld and the washer will still fit. So everything's pretty much even. Tack everything into place here. That should be good to go. Once it's all tacked, I'll bring it over to the bench, and then I will triangulate some gussets. Probably one on each end, maybe one in the middle too. Super strong. All right, all tacked in place. Let's take her off, weld her up, make a couple gussets. So the Crossmember is done. I was going to take a video of it in rough shape, but whatever. Got everything shaped nice. Matches up with the Duff radius arm curve and angle. So because the 2x2 tube is so far forward and the bolts are back here, I figured I'd go ahead and gusset the top just to make sure, but it was already super strong. Got my little corner gussets off for where it mounts to the trans mount, and this thing bolts right in place. The main 1-inch holes, 1/2-inch holes, turned out really nice. Let's get it up there, see what it looks like. All right, so first time the drivetrain is on its own weight and mounts. I welded everything, spaced out my welds, and it really paid off this time. Nothing was warped. Everything worked out great. All the bolt holes, everything lined up perfectly, no issues. Nothing changed. So here's a side view. You really would never know that mount was there. You can see it a little bit here behind the radius arm, but the goal was to not have the mount go any lower than what already exists. And I achieved it. So love how it turned out. Super simple, but super strong. So, all right, well, I'm going to put it back on the jack, take it down, and I'm going to prep it, core seal it, prime it, and paint it. But yeah, I'm going to call this the end of the video. Seeing it in gloss black is not going to make or break anything. Let's see the other thing here. So I still have my roughly 5, so I'm like 5.2 degrees is my driveline angle, so that's super sweet. And probably the 0.2 degrees was probably just the trans mount just squishing down a little bit from the weight. So perfect, love it. Cool thing is I know I keep saying this, but the full width axle, I mean, it just points right at the T-case. And again, this transmission and transfer case is a factory pair. So everything's already designed as far as transmission and T-case to allow for a front drive shaft. And technically on a GM vehicle, they are all independent front suspension from like what, 89 and up, I believe. So technically on all these independent suspension vehicles, the drive shaft basically comes straight out from the T-case straight to a differential that's mounted in the front subframe, or whatever you want to call it. And then you have the CV axles down. So yeah, in factory, basically what I'm saying is in a factory situation, the drive shaft is generally already up higher than what this one's going to be. So anyway, I'm rambling. All right, so this sums up the video on the transmission Crossmember. So like, subscribe, comment, and there's going to be a lot more. So the next videos coming up are going to be 4-link. So we're going to be setting up the 9-inch high pinion. I'm going to lower the truck down and then get the axle on some jack stands. And I'm going to basically do a full bump to position the axle. So I'm going to full bump the axle as high as it can go until it almost touches. And then I'll raise the hoist back up, locating the axle, and then I will set the pinion angle. And then I'll start doing some lower link mounts off the axle tubes. But hey, I don't want to give away all the stuff yet, so you're going to have to come back and check out the next episode. See you guys then.